Welcome to Wander Mode, a podcast that wanders through topics such as entrepreneurship, traveling, and mamahood. As a teacher turned entrepreneur and a mama to one, I am sharing my tips and tricks to maintain harmony in a multifaceted life. Let's wander. Thanks for joining me, Wanderers, for another interview episode on the Wander Mode podcast. Today's guest is Samantha Shvetzoff, who reinvented herself by transitioning from owning and operating a yoga studio to become a mental health counselor. She is currently working toward her counseling license in the state of Minnesota and working with a variety of populations at Care Clinics, a mental health agency with over 7 different locations in the Twin Cities. Welcome, Samantha. I am thrilled to chat with you today. Let's kick things off by having you share just a little bit about yourself beyond your professional identity.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julie, for having me here. It's an honor to chat with you today. So beyond my professional identity, I'd say my number one role is being a mother and a wife. I have a lovely 5-year-old boy and live with my son, my husband, and my dog in Minnetrista, Minnesota. We recently moved here from another Minnesota suburb, and I've been in Minnesota all of my life. I am someone who really enjoys spending time outdoors, focusing on my health and wellness. And a big part of my identity is showing up for other people, which inevitably bleeds into my career now as a mental health counselor. But I love being in service and just sharing my life and my experiences with other people. And in addition to that, I love to, I'm kind of an amateur gardener, very interested in that. I like to practice yoga. I like to, again, just focus on health and wellness and spend time with other people.
Awesome. So with such a personal focus on yoga and wellness, tell us a little bit about how that played a role in you owning and operating a yoga studio. Was that always a vision? Did it happen organically because those are things that you already found yourself interested in? How did you end up in that space?
Yeah, I talk about my path into entrepreneurship and into owning yoga studio as being a very destined path because I was in my undergraduate at Concordia University in St. Paul and found my way into a yoga studio in St. Paul, fell in love with the practice, became a yoga instructor, and really in my undergraduate didn't know what I wanted to do. I was studying writing and communication, but kept being told by people that journalism was dead. It was kind of in this like in-between phase of, the internet wasn't quite booming yet, right? But print material was like going out at that time. So didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then the opportunity to own a yoga studio just kind of fell into my lap. A dear friend of mine, her name is also Samantha. I started teaching for her at her studio, and she approached me one day and said, I think you should own this business. And I was like, yeah, I think you're right. And I ended up purchasing the assets of her company, and my partner and I, Nick, we found a really amazing space in St. Paul and expanded kind of the foundation, the shell of what she had already created into something more multifaceted. We offered massages, acupuncture, yoga classes. We sold retail, coffee and tea, just all sorts of health and wellness related things in this one hub of a space. So again, it felt like a very destined path at a time where I wasn't really sure what I was going to do for a career or, on that path, and ended up being in that career for about 7 years and just kind of dedicating all of my time to that.
Mm-hmm. So with this idea of it being a destined path, was it a destined path for you, or how did that come into play with Nick also being your partner at the time and then running this business with you? Would he have said it was an equally destined path for him as well? Or was it sort of just this, well, if you're jumping into it, I'm going to jump into it with you? And then how did you balance those roles? Did you both help each other with all the things, or did you kind of divide and conquer?
Yeah, great question. The funny thing is, I think looking back, if I were to ask him that question, we'd probably laugh about how that became his destined path also, because he was very much willing to just back me and kind of jump into this opportunity really that presented itself to us. However, about 1 year into getting into that space, we got married. We got pregnant about 3 weeks after getting married, and Nick moved into full-time role of being a dad. So really the business, he definitely helped me get it up and running. He's always had a background of basically showing up to whatever shows up for him. So he dove headfirst into helping me build out this space. He has a background in real estate and renovating spaces. So we were able to just work with the team and develop this concept, this space environment for the studio. So that took a ton of our energy and efforts for, I don't know, maybe like 5-6 months. And so he was with me every step of the way through that. And then once we got the space up and running, he really was just my sidekick kind of for whatever I needed. But I really was the face of the business and kind of handling the day-to-day operations. And then again, he moved into that role of being a full-time dad and just kind of holding down our home life while I was really devoting the majority of my time to getting the business up and running.
So you're this new mom, you're running this business. What were the advantages for you in that situation of being an entrepreneur at the time of also becoming a new mom? Or would you have said there were bigger challenges than positives?
Yeah, definitely, inevitably we have challenges. So there was definitely hiccups along the way. However, I would say that one of the advantages is I remember many days just sitting in my office in the studio, nursing my baby, right? I could take him with me to work when he was really young, before he was mobile. So there'd be days where Nick would drive him to the studio once or twice a day so I could nurse him and just have that flexibility of, I wasn't always working the front desk, sometimes kind of behind the scenes things, and would be able to take him with me really and have him be a part of that journey as well. And then just kind of the freedom, the flexibility, our business, we had usually any given time around like 30 employees. So a lot of support too with the business, front desk associates, admin associates, people who could really handle things, if I were to need to take a couple days or a day, if the baby got sick or things like that. So it definitely provided flexibility and opportunity to juggle both of those roles of being a new mom, being a new wife, a new partner, and having this whole other baby that I was like trying to foster and grow of the business.
It's one of the things that I've kind of talked about a lot so far in my episodes is that whole trying to find harmony in our different roles. And obviously, no matter what it is that your job is, there are pluses and minuses, and there are things that we have to kind of give and take, especially if we also find ourselves in the role of being a mom. How do you jump into this entrepreneurial journey with the skills that you have and manage now a pretty large team of people that you have to rely on? Like, I would assume to some level you have a little bit of that like risk taking side of your personality in there somewhere. How much of it was kind of really planning things out versus just kind of having to go with the flow and see where things took you?
Yeah, with the way this opportunity was presented to me, I feel like I was absolutely put into a position of figuring out as I go. Thankfully, I had the opportunity to have some amazing mentors in my life. again, my friend Sam, who had previously run the business. My spouse's family is a family of entrepreneurs. They also created a business from scratch, from the start up. And so have had a lot of mentorship for sure. And I always 100% takes self-reliance and, figuring it out as you go. But I've always been someone who's really leaned into what does the collective wisdom, collective, experience, what can I learn from that? So right away, I feel like I sought out opportunities to connect with other women entrepreneurs. I was a part of a CEO group that I attended weekly and just really made it a priority to connect with other people who have been on this path and this journey, and really humble myself to say, I'm doing something completely new. I'm not going to know it all, if anything. And so, had a willingness to try things and see what worked, and a willingness to seek out support from other people as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm learning right now. And I'm only 4 months in, but recognizing this need to hire a coach to help us build out this course that we're attempting to create, because you can hit so many roadblocks. And like you're saying, it's a very humbling experience. Like on the one hand, you have a lot of wisdom and expertise to offer other people in whatever field it is that you're in. Like obviously you've been doing yoga and wellness things for a long time, even prior to taking over this business. But just like me too, there's also other people out there in the field that have been there, done that, and can help save you a lot of time and trouble. So sounds all pretty amazing, like this incredible experience. What then were some of the troubles or things that you started experiencing that eventually caused you to have to step away?
Yeah, it's funny, as you were saying that, I was, picturing this idea of me walking into this path, right, of entrepreneurship and how wonderful that was. And I wanted to touch back on to the part about seeking out support, is it also can feel really isolating. And I think that leads into what you're asking now is, when you are a business owner, an entrepreneur, it can feel very isolating. Sometimes you spend the majority of your day alone and not around other people, and sole decisions are really put on your shoulders to make. And that can feel like a lot of responsibility, which definitely is what, that started to compound for me. I think what shifted for me was really a change in perspective with the pandemic. I mean, we sold the business in, May of 2022. So, we had just gone through 2 years of a pandemic and a lot of isolation and a lot of shifts in terms of our business was very community oriented. We hosted in-person yoga classes and one-on-one massages in small rooms. And we had to really pivot and change so much with the pandemic. We had to move to virtual yoga classes. We had to stop offering massage altogether for many months. And I think aside from the weight of that kind of responsibility of making those decisions around, do we enforce vaccine policies or not? And just all of the little things that came up, the responsibilities of really holding a space for health and wellness when so many of us felt like our health and wellness was in question and uncertain. And there was really no clear path of what was right, what didn't feel right. Just had to lean into trust and lean in to my heart. And as I did that, I found that, it's been a long time of cultivating space for other people to really live out their soul's work and their passions. And as much as I loved what I was doing, it felt like a lot of work to be that space keeper for so many people. And again, as I kind of looked into my heart and thought about what I wanted, I saw an opportunity to pursue something that felt more individual for me rather than, just holding that space for other people, I realized that I wanted to be doing one-on-one work with individuals that felt impactful. So with all the extra space that the pandemic created, since we had shifted so many of our services, I felt like there was really a window of opportunity to go back to school and pursue getting my master's degree in counseling and walk this other path.
Mm-hmm. I want to jump into this new path that you're now exploring, but something that you said really resonated with me, which is when you're an entrepreneur can feel very isolating. And it's one thing that I have found interesting in this switch is that I came from a job that was very much in front of people, being in front of students, other teachers seeing me. We had these like walkabout Wednesdays where we would go and observe other teachers in other classrooms, and your job was very visible. And when you're an entrepreneur, so much of what you do is behind the scenes and, like you're saying, completely on your own. And I was just at this party and someone came up and said, "Oh my gosh, are you just loving all of your time at home and not working?" And there was this moment for me of like, what do you mean I'm not working? Like, my days are actually longer than they were even when I was teaching, but because it's not visible and it's not putting me in front of other people, there can often be this misconception, I guess, that when you're an entrepreneur, it's just you're just made of all this time and you have all this time to kind of do whatever you want at home. And that just really resonated with me as you were kind of talking about that isolating factor, is like the difference between having a job that puts you in front of people, seeing the work that you're doing, and then this work behind the scenes that's still a lot of work, just not as visible.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think I recall one night just in the evening sitting with my husband, Nick, and I get a phone call at like 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. and there's this thing that you have to show up for, right? I feel like when you are in that space, I think you and I both can relate, now being in the profession that I'm in, I do get to show up to work, turn my work hat on, and then I get to leave work and really turn it off. And, of course, we're still thinking about our role and our identity all the time as a professional. But similarly for you, the school day would be over and you'd get to go home. And when you are an entrepreneur, it never really turns off. And if you want it to turn off, it takes a lot of effort and energy to turn it off. And it takes a lot of support and structure and things that you have to put in place for yourself. Whereas if you're working for someone else, all those things are already created for you, right? It takes a little bit less mental capacity because you're not creating that structure for yourself in your mind. And that was another thing that just became really taxing for me. At one point, it felt like I needed to give my brain a little break, right? From needing to put up those kind of constant structures and time management skills for myself.
Yeah. And so interesting that you're in this job that you felt like, as you said, you were holding space for all these other people to kind of pursue their dreams. And you're now moving into this career that is still putting you in front of a lot of people, but more on like an emotional space perspective. So speaking of structure and kind of your ability to set some boundaries for yourself, how has that been? And we'll kind of circle back around to more about getting into this space, but just out of curiosity, how are you going to manage that structure of like having some boundaries for yourself from an emotional perspective as you cross that line of now I'm done with a client and I'm going home?
Yeah, I'm really grateful for my history and my background in yoga, meditation, mindfulness. I definitely think it's the backbone of being a mental health counselor, is making sure that you have those solid self-care practices in place. I definitely think it's the number one skill that is needed as a mental health counselor, is to be able to put up those energetic boundaries and have really solid self-care practices, because you're right, it is emotionally sometimes exhausting to show up. Oftentimes I'm seeing 7 clients a day and switching really quickly to working with another client who's presenting with a whole different host of symptoms and life challenges than the last person. So it takes quick shift of mindset and showing up for people. So I do think, I know the term self-care is thrown around a lot, but really having solid self-care practices like taking time, restorative time to rest, and time to really unwind, time to have fun and experience joy is a huge part of that as well. When you're talking to people about their struggles in life, like that can bring your mood down a little bit to spending 30 hours a week talking about sometimes really difficult things that people are going through. So my son helps me a lot because he's definitely at an age where life is joyful and life is fun. So I try to make as much time as I can to just drop in with him and be really present, which helps me a lot.
We're really fortunate in this country that with self-care practices, as you said, a totally overused term, but we're very fortunate that part of our self-care can be mental health counseling. And that there are individuals that are out there that are trained and understand how to help us. What in particular, thinking about your journey as an entrepreneur to choosing counseling specifically out of all the other career fields that you could have gone into, what was the big draw there? Was there a connection from a skill set perspective? Was it seeking a particular type of education, following a certain train of thought? How did you end up landing on counseling compared to teaching or nursing or something else where you're still caring for other people and you have that human to human connection?
Yeah, I think a funny thing is that one of the translations of the name Samantha is good listener. So I've always assumed this role really as someone that, how all friend groups have like their counselor friend, right? That they go to. I really have, for the majority of my life, been that person that people can go to, can talk to, they feel safe with, they feel heard. And so I do think that, we talked a little bit earlier about destined paths, that being in this role of a counselor is another one of my destined paths and something that I was meant to do and something that is a skill for me and a strength. And with that said, I really enjoyed the social connectedness that I had through the health and wellness field. And I actually decided to study Adlerian counseling for my graduate degree. Alfred Adler was a well-known psychiatrist, and he talked about social connectedness and our social embeddedness, and felt that to really keep mental health symptoms at bay, we needed to feel connected to other humans. And I'm sure we can all relate to that, especially right over what we went through the last few years is when we feel isolated, it does increase symptoms of anxiety and depression. And so I've always just felt this connection to be connected with community, to show up, again, to be of service to other people. So it felt like a very natural transition for me.
I'm actually listening to a super interesting audiobook right now called Being Mortal. My mother-in-law had recommended it to me, and it's all about how we age. And interestingly, it talks about when we get older, a lot of the reason why our physical health declines, especially if we go into an assisted living home, nursing home, different sort of care facility, is we often become very disconnected from that human to human connection. Like, yes, you might have nurses or doctors or other staff that are coming and going, but they're not necessarily there to connect with you for the day. It takes a long time to build relationships. And there are all these studies that are being done about creating facilities that are smaller and have shared kitchens and living rooms and dining rooms and then just independent bedrooms, and how it actually encourages then people to get out and have those connections. And it it really made me think about the value of being around other people and how that has so much of a bigger impact on things, just even other than our mental health. It then impacts our physical health and our willingness to kind of get up and be moving around and all of that. Do you have a vision of kind of a particular age group that you're wanting to focus your services with, or through the agency that you're already working with, is it more of a broad range of perspectives, needs, lifestyles, etc.?
Yeah, I am working with just that currently, a very broad range. Care counseling is a Rule 29 clinic, which means that we accept all types of insurance, all types of presentations, and mental health symptoms. Sometimes some of my clients are actually court ordered to be in mental health counseling due to specific experiences that they've had. So all sorts of individuals and populations that I'm currently working with, which I value as a student who's currently working toward licensure in the state of Minnesota. It's great to get that experience with all different types of populations. I will say that time and time again, I find myself feeling very anchored in perinatal health and wellness. So when I started Healing Elements, my previous business that I owned, I oftentimes would host women's circles and really connect with other women around my age, which felt very fulfilling for me. And then when I finished my program, I actually spent about 1.5 years working at a perinatal focused mental health clinic. And if perinatal is a new term for you, that really just means the whole spectrum of, prenatal to postnatal to individuals who are trying to conceive, even thinking about having children. It's the whole spectrum of really bearing children. So I do feel that that is a space in which I feel called to, is to work with other women, and probably around like age 25 to 45. And yeah, but I feel really open. I feel very open to working with all sorts of populations of people.
Mm-hmm. And where are you currently in this process as a student? How much longer do you have to go? What was the process to even get to where you are? How many years are we talking? And hours of classes, and where can you do that? Have you been doing it online at a local school?
Yeah. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, I have my undergraduate degree in communication and writing. Took a few years off of school while I was running the business. And then I pursued getting my master's degree from Adler, which is a graduate school in Minnetonka, Minnesota here. And that took about 2.5 years. The program is designed primarily for, working adults with families. So they really did a wonderful job of structuring it in a way where you're not taking too many classes at any one given time. It would usually take up either 2 to 3 classes during a semester. So that took about 2.5 years, and I recently graduated this past March. So I've received my degree, and now I'm on the path to licensure, which is another 2 years, about 2 to 2.5 years. So in the state of Minnesota, they require you to complete 4,000 contact hours as a counselor, and then you can become licensed. And really what that means is licensure opens you up to some more opportunity. When you're licensed, you are not working under the supervision of another counselor. So right now I work really closely with a supervisor who mentors me, looks over all of my progress notes, my intakes, treatment plans, gives me feedback on those. But about 2.5 years, I'll be licensed. And then I keep saying that the world is my oyster at that point because I'll have a lot more freedom and opportunity with my career at that time.
What hopes and dreams do you have for the world as your oyster? What do you see playing out? What are you trying to manifest?
Yeah, I do. Being now in this role and working with a company comes with many perks. The community aspect is wonderful. I love having colleagues. I didn't realize what I was missing before. Of course, I did have employees, but that relationship felt a little bit different than it does now, having colleagues really as my peers at the clinic that I work at. So that feels really supportive. I love it. That said, I think I will always have this entrepreneurial spirit inside of me. And I definitely foresee myself creating my own practice at some point. That might be with other clinicians, probably will be with other clinicians, because again, it can feel very isolating to be completely on your own. So I now see the benefit of that in having a community alongside me. But being able to go out on my own and have a little more freedom around my time and what I, find that I have the opportunity to do with my time is something that I'm really seeking and have a desire for to implement a little bit more.
Yeah, that had to have been quite the shift. Like I'm experiencing the opposite right now, right? So I go from this really structured environment where my PTO is set, my sick days are set, my hours of my day are set, how many dances I have to chaperone, whatever. And I'm coming into this newfound freedom in which I've had to figure out how to build a structure for myself, to keep myself focused and organized and keep the business moving. And so it's kind of clear that for you, although you're very content with where you're at right now, that's probably an aspect of being an entrepreneur that you miss the most, is like that full control.
Yeah, definitely. I'm new to the world of PTO, and while I have many gripes about it, I'm just walking that path and journey right now. And having the experience of being a business owner does give me a lot of insight and just respect for the owners of the company that I work for, and helps me really stay focused on being there for this time period, knowing that it's not permanent, right? And that we have freedom and agency and autonomy to change things at any given time. I think that's something that helps me continue moving forward, is knowing that really it's a choice to be here. And while it might be challenging right now, it doesn't have to be forever. But for sure, that's something that I miss the most about being an entrepreneur, is having that freedom. We really value traveling. We love to travel. And so this last year's just looked a lot different as I've stepped into this role. Haven't been as many opportunities, but if anything, we're just, creating that cushion to be able to do more in the future. And
I think, as you said too, if you can kind of acknowledge you're in this space right now to work closely with another counselor, to learn a lot from another person, to experience a structure that obviously works, with them having 7 different locations around the Twin Cities, obviously the practices and the plan that they have in place are very effective. And so, as you said, if you can kind of maintain that mindset of like, I'm here to learn right now, and I'm going to take what I can get. And then when I get to the point where I can establish what I want my future to look like, then you can let that be what that will be, right? Separate of this kind of learning opportunity. Now, balancing school and then trying to achieve these hours and thinking ahead to 2 more years until you're licensed and all of those things, it requires what I'm assuming is a lot of support from home. And it sounds like you're getting a lot of great time with your son, and that kind of helps you find the joy after what can be a little bit of a daunting day. How does your family help support you kind of in this, and how as a mom are you finding strategies to be successful in both of those parts of your life?
Yeah, it definitely takes a lot of creativity. I am grateful that while I do have a set schedule and structure that I really have to adhere to, there is a little bit of flexibility in there as long as I'm, meeting my expectations in terms of the amount of hours that I work with clients. There's some flexibility in there. So I typically do get to have that hour off when I am home, when my kiddo gets off the bus, and just get to check in with him there. I really think about, what are the most critical hours of the day that feel important to be spending time with my son, with my husband. So we have those early mornings together. We try to make the most of our mornings together and our evenings. And then, my partner is an entrepreneur as well. So we've had many different journeys into kind of different businesses throughout our time together. And he's really been able to structure his time to have a lot more freedom while I'm focusing on a more kind of secure, structured career at this time. So he does more freelance work with detailing cars. He's also a realtor. So finding ways that we can lean into skill sets that we have at different parts of our life, right? So if I think about the longevity of the time that we've been together, we've gotten really creative about, okay, well, you're doing this thing, I'll do this so that I can spend more time with our son. And then while I'm focusing on this, you do this, which allows you to spend more time with our kiddo. So finding that balancing act together and being able to put the puzzle pieces together, as they change and morph over time.
Ben and I have been in exactly the same position over the last year and a half, especially where he left his job first. And I was very much I'm going to stay in the stable income realm with benefits, and I'll go ahead and support you as you kind of try to navigate this and figure it out. And then it became my turn. And now he's a little bit more in that stable role with finding, some independent work on the side to help support now me trying to figure out my role in our business. And it is definitely a dance that you have to play if you have little ones at home. That's even kind of a different type of dance to sort out, making sure that they're cared for and attention and, they're feeling loved and all of those things. What has been maybe something that's been a little more unexpected for you, like an unexpected joy or like an unexpected success in all this, whether it's you or as a family?
Yeah, I think something that's been really wonderful is, again, coming back to this idea of community. We've only been in our new home for about a year and a half, but with our move that we made, we are closer to family, and we moved into a neighborhood with other growing families. So whether it's been our close family or even friends from the neighborhood, we've been able to lean into extra support. So we haven't felt like we're completely doing it on our own, especially as my kiddo being an only child at this time. He's got other friends in the neighborhood and a cousin. We've been able to just really lean into the community support that we have around us so that we don't feel like we're stretching ourselves thin and having to do it completely on our own. I think that's been an unexpected joy because being in the position that we're in, it's really encouraged us to lean more into support from other people. Whereas in the past, I think that because we were completely independent in both of our careers, it just felt natural that that everything had to be independent. And it kind of gave us that mindset of, well, we chose this path to be independent. That means all parts of our life have to be independent. However, that's definitely not true. That's just kind of a silly narrative as I think back on it. And I'm glad that we've been able to shift that for ourselves and lean into community more.
Gives a whole new meaning to that phrase, it takes a village.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, thinking about everything that you just said, what piece of advice would you share with someone else who's navigating career changes or pursuing a passion?
Yeah, I don't remember where I heard this quote. If I did, I would give credit to the author, but it's something that stuck with me, and it's, your life will always move in the direction of your strongest thoughts. And I think that's so applicable to just everything in our life, really. And especially as you think about balancing, navigating family, career changes, just how we feel supported on a day-to-day basis and feel in alignment with our lives, is recognizing that the stories we tell ourselves, the limits we put on ourselves, or the limitlessness that we offer to ourselves makes such a difference. There was definitely a period of time where I felt stuck. I knew that I wanted to get out of, owning and operating a business and make a shift. However, I really made it up in my mind that I was stuck there and I wouldn't be able to make it happen. Something shifted for me, and it started to feel like more of a reality. And then things just started to unfold and work themselves out. And I really do attribute that to my mindset and to believing that it was possible. And I know that can sound a little cliche, like, believe in yourself, believe it's possible. However, it's absolutely true. We are only as strong as we believe that we are, and we are only as capable as we believe that we are. And bonus points if you have people around you that also believe in you and are supporting you. So that's a big piece of it too, is to check in with your environment, check in with the people that you're surrounding yourself with. Are they lifting you up? Are they encouraging you? I think that that's such an important part of this experience.
Well, I have really enjoyed hearing about your journey today. And I think that you couldn't be more on point at the end with what you just said, that, our mindset matters. And there are so many doors and things that can be open in our lives if we simply just believe, but you're not going to pay attention to the things that might come your way if you don't believe in yourself first. So I will be sure to, get any information out there that I can share with other people, resources that you might have, or even information about the agency that you work for. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. And until next time, Wanderers, wander on. If you wandered to this point in the episode, thank you for listening to the Wander Mode podcast. Please leave a review and subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Wander Mode Co. Reach me by email at julie@wandermode.co.